Coming up next on Access Framingham TV, a visit to Cuba with my guest, frequent traveler, Amy Dane. Stay tuned. Hello, I'm Jack Barron, host of Travels with Jack on Access Framingham TV, where guests share with our audience a recent trip, a vacation in Maine, a cruise on the Amazon River, or even a business trip to Las Vegas. You'll see their photos and videos and hear about the exciting places they've visited. On this month's show, Amy Dane returns to Travels with Jack. In 2013, Amy and her mom visited Cuba, where society has been changing since Fidel Castro stepped down. You'll learn about Cuba today and enjoy some music, some dance, and the time warp of the street scene filled with spruced up cars from days of old, sporting fins and shiny chrome. What parts of the world have you visited? Please be my guest on Travels with Jack. Share your travel experience with our viewing audience. Just contact us here at Access Framingham Television and let us know you'd like to be a guest. You can phone AFTV at 508-875-5434, or you can send an email message to info@accessfram.tv. Our associate producer will contact you to make arrangements for you to be on our show here on Access Framingham TV. If you don't live in Massachusetts, we would be pleased to assist with your travel to the Access Framingham studio. And now, let me welcome back Amy Dane. Hi, Amy.
Glad to be back, Jack.
Thank you. A little bit of information. Amy is from Longmeadow, Mass, and is currently lecturing about her passion to travel. She has been to over 100 countries. She is currently doing exhibits and shares her travel photography and stories throughout the state at hospitals, libraries, and galleries. www.amydaneadventures.com is Amy's website, where she lists her different services, exhibits, and other relevant information. Amy has been married 29 years and is the mother of 2 children. She joins us today to share with us her trip to Cuba, which she went on with her mother. And also, Amy has asked me to let you know that some of her award-winning photos are available on her website. So welcome, Amy. We're going to ask Bill to roll some pictures and videos. We got a lot
Lots
to talk
to do tonight.
about. Tell me a little bit, if you would, how you made the arrangements to go to Cuba, how that all took place, where you left from. Give me a little bit of a rundown.
Sure will. Well, one question I get is, oh, are we allowed to go to Cuba? And the answer is no. It's the only country in the world that our government will not let us go to. But several years ago, the government started running what they called people-to-people exchanges and made those legal. So some companies have to get this government license, and the idea is that there is a multicultural exchange, mutual learning. We learn about them and see what's happening, and it's all very strictly controlled. So I went with a group called Road Scholar, R-O-A-D Scholar, used to be the old elder hostel.
Okay.
And my mom and I were looking for a week to Cuba. She really wanted to go, and we chose one with a focus on art and dance, because we love culture. And they're very regimented. They have a program. It's like being in camp. We do this now, we do that next.
So
And
these were escorted trips.
absolutely, and we had very little free time. Everything, our leader had to account for everything we did. That has to be turned over. All of
Your
this
leader
is
was
monitored.
a Cuban or
An American, and we
Okay.
had a Cuban local guide as well.
Okay.
But all of this had to be documented and sent in. So this isn't just,
so
oh,
it's
let's
a
go
very,
to Cuba and
a very
play.
Stalinist trip.
And I hate to use that word, but yes, you just
Okay.
can't take your camera and go off for the afternoon and wander around. That was definitely frowned upon. They did not want you to stray from the group.
So you left from where?
We left from Miami. The
Oh.
flight was included from Miami,
Okay.
and we went on Wilson Sky King charter.
Okay.
And our American guide told us that it would be the longest, shortest flight we'd ever take.
Okay.
Because we queued in lines for forever. And if we thought they were bad leaving Miami, it was even worse getting into Cuba. What a mob scene that
How
was.
long is the flight?
Maybe 40 minutes.
Oh, okay.
45
Short
minutes.
trip.
It's very short.
This was a jet?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not into planes.
All
You
right.
got me
But
there,
you got
Jack.
there.
I got there. I got there.
Tell me about the Cuban airport.
So we have some pictures to show.
Oh, all right.
So I think that will get us going.
Till they, oh,
So
there.
first of all, we want to talk about, we all know more or less where Cuba is. I just want to say that it's in the Antilles archipelago, and it's so beautiful that they call it the Pearl of the Antilles. It's 90 miles south of Key West.
Okay.
It is about 162 miles on the west end from the Yucatan in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Cuba has 15 provinces, and there are 11 million people approximately on the island.
That many.
3 million in Havana, yes.
I didn't know there were that many.
Yep, there are. So this is the scene when we got our baggage and started to leave the airport. You see all these Cuban Americans coming back, probably with things they brought with them that they couldn't get in Cuba. And for some reason, they love to shrink wrap everything in plastic. It's just really quite a scene. I suppose they think that protects their stuff. And the first thing you do when you come in is you see these billboards in the airport, and this is what it's all about. The old American cars, the cigars, the rum. And I have to tell you, we are not allowed to bring back rum and cigars.
I knew the cigars.
Americans
I
cannot
did
do
not
this.
know about the rum.
No,
Okay.
but we are, believe it or not, okay on this cultural exchange to buy art and bring it back.
Okay.
Okay, so you can buy art, but you cannot have a cigar. Leaving the airport, you must remember that advertising signs went bye-bye with the revolution, and still you see stuff like this. More socialismo, Viva Cuba. All of this is what you still see on the street. You would think that Castro took over yesterday. And here's Che Guevara, of course. They just love him.
The
And
sign
this is
looks
still,
like
we're,
it's deteriorated a little
getting
bit.
that way, yeah. And next, of course, we have our hero, anti-hero, whatever you want to call him. Bill? The
Well,
next slide.
We'll get to Fidel. There
Okay,
he is.
there's Fidel. And you will see this face everywhere. And I write here, El Triunfo. That is the triumph of the revolution. This is the way they refer to what happened. They still call it the triumph of the revolution. That's what they call it.
Did you get a chance to ask any older people, your mother's age, Cuba today versus Cuba 1957, 58?
We did not have, for all the exchanges we had, we really didn't have that. We didn't have that. We spoke with artists, musicians, all kinds of people, but we didn't speak to the average person so much. But anyway, as you recall, El Triunfo, back in 1960, Castro took over. That was the end of Batista.
Yep.
Lots of Cubans fled. We have many of them, of course, in Miami still. Big population. And he nationalized everything American. The Cold War starts.
I don't think he paid for the nationalization, though.
No, he did not. And you remember Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis and all of that. So
For those of you folks who are
Younger.
considerably younger than me, I don't know about Amy, we were, as little kids, told to get under our school desks to be protected when there was a Cuban Missile Crisis in case a atomic weapon was launched at the United States. So we were under our little desks, and we were going to be protected from the rays of radiation as we, got under the desk.
Hey, my brother bought a house with the old bomb shelter, the old shelter. Bill, why don't you run us some of those wonderful Cuban cars that everybody loves? We love those cars, don't we? I'm not a car person. I could care less. I don't know one from the other. But
I love to look at the old cars. Hay un negrito en La Habana que pregona sin cesar. A medio los cocos secos, a medio los cocos secos.
The Soviet Union took over when the Americans were kicked out. But what happened with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991? Left Cuba alone for the first time. So anything that they had, they had to keep, they had to service, and nothing is wasted in Cuba. Everything has a purpose. And you just see this repeatedly. They are very, very clever with making use of what they have. And these cars are in mint condition. Many of them serve as taxis today.
Did you take all these photos?
I did take these photos.
Oh, they're great. Oh, that's in pretty good shape.
I love these photos.
Yeah.
But what happened with the Soviet Union when that collapsed, Cuba's alone, all of a sudden, there's food shortages, there's transportation issues, there was no oil. All the things that the Soviet Union had provided, there was absolutely nothing. And that time period, they still call the special period.
Oh, they have a name.
And I asked my guide, when did the special period end? And she said, according to Fidel, it was in 2005, but she said it's still going. It's still going. So there was a lot of malnutrition,
Really?
not enough food, all sorts of horrible things. And one of the things
and
that
this
happens,
was at the time, in the 50s, the highest per capita income country in the Caribbean.
That's right. That's right. All of a sudden, they had absolutely nothing. So what was Castro going to do for money? Well, of all ironic things, he started encouraging tourism and legalizing the dollar. Funny for a staunch socialist, isn't it? So he started to allow some foreign investment, and he started to let Cubans have contact with their American relatives, the Cuban Americans that had left, so that they could get those dollars, what they call remittances, up to $2 billion, they think, in remittances. So the funny part of that is that Cuba, the Cuban state, is now being supported by the people who had left it. It's all very ironic.
And Venezuela had been giving them a lot of money over the years, but Venezuela now is, due to their revolution, is now in such bad shape that even with all their oil, I think they're having trouble sending money to Cuba because they need it themselves.
Well, there was also an issue for a while. Castro allowed that dollar. I don't know why, but he stopped it in 2004 and did something rather strange. There are actually two national currencies in Cuba.
Really?
One of them is the usual one, the Cuban pesos. Your average Cuban person having a government job is paid in Cuban pesos. Now, if you are lucky enough to work in investments in anything foreign, say hotel jobs, you drive a taxi, you deal in what they call CUCs, C-U-C, the Cuban convertible pesos.
Okay.
Which is worth, much, much, much more than the pesos. Now, the even weirder part is that only certain things can be bought with the CUC. The good stuff, beef, plasma TVs, a nightclub, the good beer, the Bucanero beer, only can be bought with the CUC. So your average Cuban can't even have access to those things.
So the whole revolution, which was based on equality, has dissipated to a great degree with the public sector workers being paid one money,
right,
and workers in tourism, etc., being paid in a different money, which buys them the better goods.
It creates a society of have and have-nots.
So everything they sought to avoid, they ended up with.
And it's even worse because you have what they call the inverted pyramid. Doctors, professionals, can actually have a salary of about 1 day's pay would be a Bucanero beer, $1.
Really?
So a lot of these people moonlight by driving cabs, and they say that in the high season, in a month, they can earn 15 times their pay in their profession. So you have all of these talented, incredible people who have to go look for ways to earn the kook.
I'm looking at these fabulous automobile pictures, and when I see you having photos on the streets, some of the buildings look to me like less than great condition. What was your sense? Are these all in Havana? I should ask you that.
This is all Havana, mostly Havana.
Like there. Do you get a sense that the buildings have deteriorated a lot?
Oh, yes. Well, you got to realize, too, between the regular climate of hurricanes and the humidity, that's bad enough.
Yep.
But when you have no money to fix up these beautiful, beautiful colonial buildings, they fall apart. Not only do they fall apart, they actually have what they call derrumbe, collapses. Buildings just collapse.
Really?
So that leads to many deaths, as you can well imagine. It's not safe.
How'd you learn all the language? You already derrumbe.
Derrumbe. That's right. There's another neat word I learned, luchar, which means to fight, as in the revolutionary sense of to fight imperialism. But in terms of those government jobs we talked about, there is the noun la louche, translated as taking things from the job place into one's own possession. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's called stealing.
No, they have another word for it. What did you tell me? La louche.
Jobs with benefits.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you've got a lot of
jobs
black
with
market, jobs with benefits. But there were some good things about the special period, too, I have to say. Religious expression got much better. In 1998, Pope John Paul came to visit. And that same year, Christmas became a holiday again. Agriculture. With all the starvation that had happened, with all this lack of food, they started to encourage farmers, giving them a bit more land and even making plots in cities to grow organic gardens. Yep. Good food, healthy food. They did a lot more with that. And farmers are encouraged to grow have their pigs and chickens and sheep. I got to tell you something funny. Cows, however, are government property. Okay. If you take care of a cow, it's like renting that cow because it's government owned. And our sweet little guide told us that her father had some cows. And one got stolen, and he had to pay a huge amount of money to the government for that. And He got so disgusted, he gave the rest of the cows back. And lobster, by the way, are government property and only fished by the government. But now people are allowed to buy and sell property, which they weren't before. You used to have to trade a house by word of mouth. With Raul Castro now, some dissidents have been freed, and he's been encouraging some more private business. He's letting small family businesses of restaurants really develop and grow. These are called paladars. And actually, we have a slide, Bill. The next slide will show you.
A paladar.
A paladar,
Tell me a little bit about the food. You ate what?
A lot of beans we had.
Yeah.
But what I loved most of all was the fact that we got, don't ask me why.
Oh, here's the housing.
Yes,
so
these are the, I won't say derrumbe, but you can see the condition.
They look derrumbe to me.
They looked a little derrumbe, yes. And the next slide will show you the paladars, which is the much better side of what's happening these days.
Oh, that looks nice.
So people are encouraged to have little businesses now, which is better. And that's really good. The food, well, we got to have 3 drinks for lunch and dinner. And of course, the Cuba Libre is the big drink, of course. You could also have your Bucanero beer or a fairly not great glass of wine.
So you're a little drunk every day.
Somehow, the longer you sit, it goes down. You think of the old rum and coke.
Now, what is this big high rise?
Okay, so we get out of the airport, and
Yeah.
the first thing they want to impress us, and they take us to this great big building called the Foxa Building.
Oh, okay, you
And
labeled it. I'm sorry.
We had lunch on the top floor. Now, this was a marvel in its day. Built in 1956 out of the latest technology. It was the highest building in Cuba, and I must say that from the top, the views are fantastic. You look down on the Malecón, the big boulevard. Next slide, please.
And what is the Foxa building? Is it an office building?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
this is one of the beautiful views from the top of that building, and you are actually looking down at the hotel I stayed at,
the Nacional, which is famous.
Very famous. It was built in 1930 by two well-known American firms, McKim, and White and Purdy Henderson.
Yep.
Yep. It is so famous. Anybody who's anybody famous has stayed in this hotel. And in fact, they give tours of rooms that people stayed in and all the celebrities that have stayed there. And it's just fantastic. It's gorgeous inside. I really enjoyed it here. I really did. You feel that sense of history.
What
and it's
kind
now
of
actually
did they get for the rooms?
Well, we wouldn't know that.
You don't know.
We wouldn't know that because it was all done up, but I don't think it's so bad. Now we're looking at Old Havana, and you can see some of the beauty of the square there. Keep rolling, we're okay. And the beautiful church and the inside of it. They are very Catholic, and there are churches all over, but the main cathedral is gorgeous.
So even with the communism, which made them get rid of it, you found they're back to being strong Catholics.
That's right. Well, I think they still were, I'm sure,
really?
and just couldn't admit it. And on the left, you see some sort of the fruit ladies that are for tourists, really. But the man that's playing the trumpet there is music all over. And this really, it's not just for tourists. Dance, they love music and dance. It's a very, very cultural society. It's fantastic. Here you see a restaurant we went to, and it's all about music. And the next slide will show you one of the people that we went with having a little dip there with the orchestra. We just had a great time. There's music everywhere you go. This will show you, of course, the commercial side, and anything to get the tourist buck. I did come home with a Che Guevara t-shirt, and you see this man with many hats on his head, including a Fidel hat on the top. Anything's for sale there. And here you see a lot of ruin. They're really tearing stuff down now and trying to make the old city really, really nice. Kind of like what they're doing in Panama City in the old city now. So you will see all the rubble around you, but it's all for good, I would hope. And the workmen at their break.
So who is building the new stuff, the government or private parties?
It has, I've got to think it's the government.
Really?
I've got to, I don't know, but I would have to think so with some kind of money. And by the way, foreigners are not allowed to own property in Cuba.
They're not, okay.
No, you may rent, but you cannot own. And these are just street scenes in Old Havana. You kind of get the idea of faded glory. Nice for pictures, but I don't know that I'd want to live in it.
How did the residents of Havana seem to dress, in your opinion, as to, were they fashionable? Was it
current,
okay.
skinny jeans and the usual thing? Yep.
Okay.
Oh, and this is, by the way, the Floridita bar that Hemingway used to haunt.
Oh, okay.
And there is, if you continue, you will see a statue of Hemingway right there in the bar. And Hemingway also spent a lot of time at this hotel, and you see pictures of him all over the lobby there, the one on the right with Fidel Castro. So there's Hemingway all over the place. Now I want to talk to you about the focus of our trip, which was art and music and dance. Now, early on, as soon as Fidel took over, he had high, high hopes to build a huge institute of the arts. Music, dance, performing arts, you name it, which is so strange in a way for a communist to want to do this. But they love freedom of expression even still. It wasn't like it was in Russia. And they no longer had any materials, of course. So you see the local brick there that they would use. He had 3 Italian architects come in to build, and he wanted it done yesterday. And of course, as things happen, it got more expensive, the money ran out, styles changed, and that beautiful idea and what would have been a beautiful building never got completed. And so here you see what they call the ruins of the ballet. It was started. The ballet director, Alicia Alonso, saw it. She didn't even want to perform here. It was too dark. And the whole thing fell in ruins. Squatters came to use it. It was a shame. Beautiful building that's now even being considered as a UNESCO site. And here you see some of the hallways and the classrooms just all in ruins. Sad. But the one thing that is working across the river there is the music school that is up and running, and we were supposed to visit some music students. And of course, last minute, oh, they're preparing for a festival, we can't visit them. So you never know. The guide always had to confirm and reconfirm because things could change on them, and who knows why. But we did not get to visit. Another place we went was this Ludwig Foundation, a German who made huge money in chocolate, that built foundations with art all over the world. And this is one of 6 foundations in Cuba that highlights local talent, young artists. It promotes them. This is a man who made
And they still send money to support it, the foundation?
Oh, the foundation has huge money, huge
Okay.
money. And you see this gentleman made those beautiful roof sculptures of the baseball players. And the next slide shows a man we sat with over dinner. He makes these great big paintings of chess pieces. We had lovely discussions with them. So artists are trying hard. And then we went to visit this one at his home. He had a beautiful home that he shares with his brother. Both of them are artists. And this guy is rolling in dough. It turns out that the artists are allowed to sell their art. They can make more money, say, than a doctor could make because they have something that can be sold. And we bought art from him in his house. He makes beautiful, keep going.
How were his
See this,
prices?
look at this house. Look how beautiful. Oh, his prices were pretty hefty and he was getting it. But he told us he traded for this house. This was before the days you could buy a house. They traded 2 apartments for it. And he does these decoupage. He does these paintings with cutouts that are shellacked on. I'd say I bought one, a small one, probably around, I don't know if it was probably $100, $150. I want to say 100. And that's one that I bought. Okay, so you have Stevie Wonder. It's all about music. And you've got the accordion. And I didn't know what this guy in the corner was.
Did you have to convert your U.S. dollars into the Cuban money?
Well, interestingly, for this guy, by the way, if you didn't have enough money, he would let you send money to his relatives in Florida. He would let you take the work, and you could say, I'll send to Florida.
Really?
But did we convert money? Yes. So our dollars got converted into kooks, like I told you.
Yep.
Well, as it seemed, you would think by the exchange, 1 kook equaled $1, except that they charge us 10% commissions as American on top of the 7% sales tax. And of course, the euro and the Canadian dollar are not charged commission. So yes, we ran around with kooks.
So the trick is to convert your money here in the States into either Canadian or euros.
Well, I guess you could do that, yeah.
And
Who
then
knew?
you'd avoid the
That's
penalty.
Right. But of course, you have to pay to do some kind of conversion too. But I think definitely to get Canadian dollars would have been good.
Okay.
Next. So we see Kelvin showing us his brother's work, which are, he used to take the old advertising signs, the old metal signs that were, of course, abandoned.
Yep.
And he made art with them. And some of them you can still see the bullet holes. So this was quite something. And you see one of them there.
Do they only speak Spanish, or were most of the people you met lingual in
They'll speak English too, but it's Spanish. It's pretty
Are
Spanish.
they taught English in their schools, or you don't know?
I did not ask that.
Okay, that's all right.
I did not ask. I bet they are, though. Next. And there you see Kelvin busily wrapping up all our purchases. There we are as a group. We just bought so much stuff. So he's doing quite well for himself. And this is another
that's pretty
gallery.
neat.
This gallery actually is a merger between 3 artists. It's very highbrow, expensive stuff. And this gallery figures out how to take American credit cards.
Oh.
Which, of course,
did
we
not
cannot use credit cards in Cuba.
Okay. So this was a credit card-free
Yes,
area for
you
the
bring
most
your
part.
money. But
Yep.
this gallery had wangled some way of charging American credit cards.
It's called,
so
they probably bribed somebody.
I would think so. Next. And the most fun way,
What
of
about
course, to buy.
European credit cards? Were they?
I'm sure they can use them.
They were used.
I think. I
Okay.
assume so. The artisans market's fantastic. If you want some fun, nice street art, cheap, I'll tell you, I ran around. We were given 1 hour in this big place to shop. 1 hour. So I sped shop. I think I rolled up 6 canvases. They take them off the stretcher and roll them up. And I kept rolling them up, and walked out with my bundle. but I had 1 hour to run around this place and pick stuff. Next.
And this was
And there you see
mostly
two men that
original
sold
art?
to me. Yeah, I bought the guy with the trumpet there playing.
Yep.
I bought that piece from that man. And the other guy on the other side is rolling up a wonderful car that I bought from him, a great big painting of a car. Now, then we went to a suburb of Havana.
Were they friendly to you as an American?
Very friendly.
Really? So
Very
you
friendly.
got no sense
No
of...
issues.
No issues.
No issues. This was actually a community where art is on the streets. There were some people that wanted to teach art to kids on the weekend, but apparently it conflicted with some government computer class or something. So as it ended up, everybody started making art, and it decorates the streets now. And this man was telling us all about it. And he says it's like poetry. Snoopy's son, Schultz's son, Snoopy's son, Schultz's son came here and made this mural and thanked the people of Muraleando for all the things they had done. And here you see they take hubcaps and make a bench. There was nowhere to sit to wait for the bus. So they made a bench. And then on the other side, you see they actually made a bus stop because there wasn't even a bus stop recognizable. Next, and then they made this is a poignant story, Elena's bench. This woman would come and sit on the rocks. There was nothing there, old woman every day in the evening. And someone once asked her, why do you come every evening? And she says, I'm waiting for my lover.
Okay.
And when she died, they erected a bench in her memory, Elena's bench. Isn't that beautiful?
It is. It is. It's a nice story.
Yeah. And then you just see
you see a lot of graffiti.
Well, it's not
They don't call it graffiti?
It's art.
Art.
These cultures are very expressive. And here you see a bird's nest. It's a little hard to see a metal bird's nest there, so a bird can come and nest.
What was the level of living? Would you say similar to what you see in Africa, or?
Oh, no. Better. Much better, yeah, I think. Well,
Okay.
depending on where you go. And here you have a toilet made into art because, as I said, they're very creative. Nothing is wasted. If it can't be used, it can be made into art. And here is an area where you see Che Guevara
Yep.
and his friend that grew up in this area. And here they made a little place where people could sit, perform a play right on the street. And then we have, this is great. It lists all these different countries around the world, and if you walk around it 10 times, or if you walk around it, you're supposed to be 10 years younger. I think 10 times and 10 years younger, so if you'd like to try. And we have the Virgin Mary over here surrounded by hubcaps.
By hubcaps, okay.
Her halo of hubcaps, yep. And then we had the people from the area perform for us here. And it was lovely to see mothers and children and grandmother here.
How many people were on your group?
Good question.
20, 25, something like that?
No more. No more than that.
Okay.
No more than that.
So you had a bus pick you up every morning?
Oh, yes.
And took you?
Yep.
Now, you get back from a long day, go into the hotel. Did they take you to different restaurants
Then
night?
we did. We went to different restaurants. One night
Mostly
we were
in private homes? These, what do you call them, paladas?
Well, we went to restaurants.
Oh, you did?
Now, we did have one night that we were free, I have to say, to go to a paladar of our choice.
Yep.
Break down and do our thing.
So tell me about the restaurants. Fun?
I enjoyed them.
Okay.
I really did.
Entertainment in most of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was happy with the meals we were served pretty much. I'm not picky at all, but I found it fine.
A lot of foreigners in the restaurants with you?
Yes, there are tourists, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And they really want those tourist dollars. They're really
they
vying
need them.
hard for them. They need them. Yep. So here is, again, the performers there and the grandma with the kids, and we were just having so much fun with them after we toured that town.
Cute kids.
Very cute. And just look at the walls of this place. You have the broken bottles made into art on the walls. You have the old cash register stuck on the wall. Everything is a celebration of stuff. And it's just creative and it's fun. Now, my mother and I did the no-no. We snuck out one night because we wanted to go to the ballet. And we this is too funny. We went in the afternoon to the ballet in a taxi to get tickets.
Yep.
Wouldn't you expect to find a booth where one buys tickets? No. There was an old woman sitting there with paper tickets in her hand. And so she sells us a couple of tickets, pretty cheap.
Yep.
And supposedly they had seat numbers on them or whatever. And she said, don't worry about where you'll sit. I'll take care of you. And we thought, huh? So, okay. We went. And I'd like to show you some more here about what we saw when we got into the ballet. They have these wonderful exhibits of, you see the photo in the back of the dancer posing, and then someone would make a sculpture in that pose. So everything is always about art and relating to something else. And there are a few of these that are just delightful. You see there? The ballet poses with the sculpture. I really enjoyed that. And Alicia Alonso there, I think she was in Swan Lake or something.
Now, does this ballet run all year long?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, but
there's
this,
the theater.
Of all things, it looked like an auditorium in blue. I guess I expected some kind of a nice theater. And then I could see why the woman said, oh, don't worry about where you sit. Now, the place was crowded, but people scout out seats. And the minute, when there are empty seats up front, the minute the lights went down, I swear it was like scurrying rats. Everybody rushed to a seat. Everybody ran. I've never seen anything so funny in my life. So, you just scooted for a better seat if you could get one.
Oh, this looks like a nice lobby
This is a
area.
beautiful lobby. I'm above looking down on the second floor, and who do you see out the window across at Revolutionary Square? But a neon picture of Che Guevara coming right through the ballet window. So that was kind of interesting.
So this is the ballet theater, is that what it's called? Or the building, is it a national monument theater kind of thing? Or
that's where they do theater?
That's where they do it, okay. Yeah. Cinema, did you see a lot of movie theaters?
They have them?
Yep. American movies, or what did you kind of
Didn't notice.
Didn't notice
Okay. That. I'm telling you, we were so busy visiting senior centers, kindergartens, watching dance rehearsals. We were busy every second.
What in conversation with your fellow travelers on the trip, what kind of sense did you get from them of their impression?
Everybody loved it.
Loved it.
I mean, everybody loved it. We had no hassles, and I'm sure that's because the guy,
because you were a specific group and
the local.
They knew
well,
sure.
Believe me, I think they're the ones with the hassles, making sure that we're in line. I'm sure they had more headaches than we did, but all of us had a great time. I mean, the weather was great. The sights were fun. My, I think, biggest frustration is we went to the most gorgeous art museum. They have an amazing, amazing art museum. And the
this
leader...
This is what, like their national art museum?
Yes. And the head of that Ludwig Foundation took us through on a tour for an hour and a half.
And
now,
what kind of stuff did you see in their national?
All kinds. We went from colonial art right through present-day art. And it was so fascinating, I wanted to spend a day there. And yank, off we go after an hour and a half. I was so frustrated.
So this National Museum, did you have things like Van Goghs and that kind of stuff? Or was it mostly?
Was Cuban. It was Cuban. Pretty much Cuban.
And Cuban artists.
Yes. And quite an education. Really a wonderful education. But it just always seemed so strange to me how much expression was allowed during this whole Fidel regime, where usually you think of the Russian art that was all propaganda.
Yeah.
This wasn't so. I think I was really surprised about that. Freedom of expression, unless you openly denounce the regime, it's allowed. Creativity is absolutely fostered.
Well, you say unless you denounce the government, because they do have a lot of political prisoners.
That too.
Yeah.
That too. And they still do what they're trying to do better. Now, we had a wonderful lecture I want to tell you about. We heard a talk by Alberto Falla, a professor at the University of Cuba who was just the greatest. And he gave us 500 years of Cuban music in a nutshell.
Oh, really?
In an hour and a half. And this was really informative. And he equated... He said, Cuban music is the essence of the culture, and that preservation of heritage is preservation of life. It's integral. And he started, he gave us a little exercise to prove this point. Now, there were a lot of influences on Spanish art and that Cuban art, and that's where we start. And he at first took out his guitar and played to us some of the Spanish music. When they came over, they brought their own music. The common laborers just brought their own popular music for entertainment. And then, of course, what did you have but African slaves? Working night and day, they were treated as tools, not people, cutting sugar cane, and they had to keep their music to survive. And here you have Columbus, of course. We have no trace of Indian music. That was wiped out with Columbus. And what we do have, though, is this Indian drawing showing the oppression of the Spanish. You see the people down below, or a horse sort of being burdened with a cross on top. That's pretty much what that is. So we have Spanish influence in the music. We have African call and response. We have their drums. And then, of course, the European music comes in. Oh, back to the African music. Bill, if you could play that little video clip for us. These are videos that I took, short little clips. It will show you some of this African influence.
How much slavery?
Oh, do we have the music with that?
How much slavery did they have there?
Texas and music. This is on the countryside.
Yes.
The sugar harvest. Oh.
I expected we were going to have the audio part with this.
It will probably play on the
Okay, great.
show for the people watching.
So you still see all of the influence of the African music with the call and response and the drums. And then, of course, the Europeans come in. Now, in the 19th century, there was a ruling class made rich from that sugarcane production. And they actually had a theater in Havana. They had Enrico Caruso come sing.
Really?
Yes, there was huge influence there. And then in the 30s and 40s, you get the rumba and the tango coming in. And then finally, you get the influence of jazz music from New Orleans. And you get the Cuban big band, the habanera. Bill, if you could play that one.
I think, was
yes.
it.
And,
Am I right?
Yes, and this was actually, this kind of music went with the dance at the habanera. That was the
This
first
is a habanera.
truly Cuban dance to be exported out of Cuba. And the professor
Sounds
played
very
this,
Cuban,
and
isn't it?
people knew the tune. I figured people,
With all that
maybe I'm the wrong generation.
mixture.
But
I don't know if Xavier Cugat was from Cuba. I don't know if you remember Charo. Charo was
I tend to be fairly classical myself, very traditional. But you have, what the professor was really getting at was that you had all these influences that stayed with Cuban music and the
Can
borrowing,
you identify
making finally a music that's truly Cuban. And
which is?
when we hit the next slide, you will hear the professor's voice as he points out in the next clip the call and response of the orchestra in the way that the Africans had done that, the African beat.
And distinguish European
like that.
from European.
The piano and the
Not
orchestra.
European. Absolutely Cuban. European. Europe keeps on being Europe. Contemporary music. A little bit jazzy. Very Cuban. Jazz. And now the response. How much go to the African world, all this, through our history, through your influence that comes also African into us, also with all that, also with Europe, and all the contemporary sounds that any Cuban music could get from the air.
I will tell you, the photos are fabulous in there. So go ahead. So after the lecture, you moved on to where?
Well, after our time in Havana, we went to a couple of towns. We went to Cardenas and Matanzas on our way to Varadaro
I've
to have
heard
a
of
couple days at the
Varadaro.
beach.
That's what, a big beach area.
It is. And, you know, at first I thought, why am I wasting time in Cuba like that with a day or two on the beach? But believe me, at the end, you don't mind so much. But I would like to share with you some of the dance that we saw in the town of Matanzas. And we met a group called the Group Espiral. And this is an area where they are heavily influenced by African folklore, and they did a dance for us with gods from the Yoruba religion. And I do want to share this with you, some of the little clips. So we're going to look at this dance, and at first we're going to have the god called Alegua. He is dressed in red and black. He starts and ends parties, and he controls destiny. So he has a hat and he carries a hooked rod to help him navigate
sounds a little
through
bit
the
like
forest.
Haitian folklore with the voodoo and everything.
Could be. So
Could
Bill,
be.
if you could play that clip for us.
Oh,
Here
there
we
we
have
go.
Alegua. Yeah. And that was Alegua. Now we go on to the god Yamaya. She wears blue and white, and she represents both the ocean and maternity. Hit it, Bill.
I'm jealous. I can't move that well.
Oh, probably not. Probably not. Now, then we will see Yamaya again, being freed from her voluminous dress, and I would like to show you the continuation of her dance there. And then something happens. We continue to the god Ochun. She's a seductress dressed in yellow. She represents the river, and she carries a fan.
So they explain. Fabulous.
Okay, and then we end up seeing what happens with the influence of Christianity coming into.
Oh, that ruined the whole seductress stuff.
Takes the African and throws some Christianity into it, which you'll hear from the music. Okay, Jack, now that we've had our African and our Christian influence on the dance of Cuba, let's go to something really fun and look at a seduction dance.
A seduction dance.
Seduction. In fact, they call it the vaccination.
Okay.
And I have two little clips to show you here that I think you'll really enjoy. And the dance continues.
Boy, these folks know how to move.
Yes. Bill, if you can just put up the next slide. Then we saw another kind of dance entirely called danzón. It was a big deal in its day. It started in 1879 because people actually danced together closely. What a scandal. Now, it's not that exciting to watch, and you do see the man on the left dressed in the traditional gayabara, the white shirt.
Okay.
But what was interesting about this, and I think there's one more slide after, this dance has a special language of the fan, and you see our guide holding a closed fan. And if you will permit me to tell you about this.
Yes.
If a lady danced with her fan closed and ran her finger over the top of it, that meant, I want to talk to you.
Okay.
If she put the fan in front of her private area, it meant, we're just friends.
Okay.
If she placed an open fan across her heart, it meant true love. If she placed the fan in front of her lips, the signal was, kiss me. The fan closed into the left side meant, I want you. The closed fan before the nose, follow me. Both hands pressing the closed fan said, forget about it. How fun is that?
That's terrific. I think you should add to your website, which, to remind everyone, I'm going to give her a plug, www.amydaneadventures.com. You're going to have to sell fans, Cuban fans.
Apparently I will.
And you'll tie. Did you see? You know, I remember my folks brought to me when I was a little kid from Cuba the
Maraca things.
maracas.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
they still sell those?
I wasn't looking for them.
You didn't
I wasn't
see them.
looking.
Okay, I remember. I don't know if you folks will remember. They were like balls
Yeah,
full of
they still have them for
something.
kids.
They do,
Yeah, I
and
have some
on
from
handles,
Africa,
and you,
actually.
And you shake them,
Yeah.
and it was that was the
Yeah.
highlight. Oh, where are we
But
now?
I must tell you,
this
this
looks
is the
fancy.
beautiful resort of Varadaro. You see the golf course back there, beautiful
Oh.
water. There is definitely gorgeous resorts in
This
Cuba.
was built by who? Spanish companies, I think.
I don't know.
Not American.
I don't think so.
And a nice beach area. Looks beautiful.
It was an all-inclusive, and you know, honestly, we ran so hard. It was nice to have a day on the beach.
I had
What a picture that is. Does that not make you want to go?
It does. I had a vendor that I do business with up in Canada. And one of the office people who I talked to used to love to go to Cuba every year, and I think she stayed somewhere near there. She said it was inexpensive, and Canada, of course, has ties to Cuba. And, well, I think I won't get into the discussion today, but I think we have legitimate reasons not to have ties with Cuba, especially since they usurped a lot of
Agreed.
property and never wanted to pay for it. So I think that's one of the issues that needs to be straightened out. But anyway, she did go to Cuba every year, and your beach pictures show me how lovely it can be.
Right.
And that Caribbean water, there's nothing like it. So where is your next trip off to? You told me you were going to go to the Crimea,
I was supposed
and it
to
was
go.
canceled?
I was supposed to go on a Ukraine cruise, and sure enough, no sooner did I sign up than things fell apart. So that's not
So you're going to
happening.
send Mr. Putin a letter that he ruined your next vacation?
Well, it turns out cruise was in my head, and I've never been to Norway. So I have a friend, and we're going to take 3 weeks in Norway and spend 12 days on a beautiful
Promise
ship.
me you're going to bring me pictures and come back to Travels with Jack.
Absolutely. I would
Great
love to come
have
back.
you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you for a fabulous show on Cuba. I loved it. You're always a great guest.